Welcome to a special edition of the Global Gaming Business Podcast. I'm Roger Gross, the publisher of GGB, and today we sit down with David Lucchese, the president of the Association of Gaming Equipment Manufacturers, on how AGEM was impacted by the pandemic and why now he sees a bright future for the organization. This week's program is thanks in part to Konami Gaming, which we've heard has three-dimension video slots arriving to G2E for the first time next month. Visit KonamiGaming.com for more information. Welcome to the Global Gaming Business Podcast. My guest today is Dave Lucchese. Dave is a senior vice president for Every, but in this case, we're talking about the Association of Gaming Equipment Manufacturers. Dave is the president of that. Dave, thanks for joining us. It's great to see you.
Roger, thanks for inviting me. This is exciting. Good to connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've been a big supporter of AGEM since the start, and we think you've gone through a bunch of presidents, and you've all done a great job. You've just been in for a few months now. What's the first few months been like? Because we're just coming out of the pandemic, so it must be a little more complicated than a normal transition might be.
Yes, aren't I blessed to be the president during these challenging times? But it's been really good. Listen, my fellow officers are very supportive and very supportive in the transition when I took over. So it's been going great under the circumstances, and I think overall we're doing pretty good. Sure.
Well, you've had a bunch of officers that have been on the board for a while, so I guess everybody knows how it runs. And you've been on the board yourself actually before becoming president, so you kind of you have a handle of how things go.
Yeah, that's correct. I joined in 2000, or I became an officer in 2015.
Okay.
That was right at the point when, then Global Cash Access bought Multimedia Games and
sure.
Took the mantle. So I got to observe and participate more and more over time. And listen, we have a great slate of officers, and even in the current term, we added another officer position. So
sure.
We welcomed Elaine Hodgson from Incredible Technologies to join the officer group. So we're glad
sure.
to have Elaine's presence and talent and contribution. She's been a nice addition to the officer group.
Yeah, absolutely. She's been a real stalwart in the industry for so long. It's great to see her get involved in the AGEM group here. So yeah, as you mentioned, the pandemic was a real challenge for AGEM. Nobody was making any money, so you guys dropped the requirement to pay dues in 2020. Have you reinstated that now?
We have. Let's just start with, it certainly has been a journey and a challenge for all of us. But when the pandemic hit, and listen, it hit the gaming industry as harder than almost any other industry
Absolutely.
Out there. So we always look after our members. So we looked at our financials, felt it prudent that we could pause dues, for an indefinite period of time. So we did that to benefit our members. Since then, that endured through 2020 and the beginning of 2021. We have since reinstated those dues. So seem to be on a pretty even keel now that for the most part, we've been on a recovery path as the industry as well as
sure.
Most of our members.
Right. Well, it doesn't look like you've lost many members. I know you just added a few recently, and it looks like you're as strong as you ever were.
In 2021, we hit an all-time peak of membership, and then certainly with the pandemic, and we're sympathetic to companies that make the decision for whatever variety of reasons. We've lost a few as well, so we're off of our peak, but still, I think we're at a point right now in past halfway through 2021 better off than we were in I would say the at least the midpoint of 2019.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. So I always get a kick out of you guys are really competitive out in the industry itself. The slot manufacturers and all the manufacturers are fighting tooth and nail for market share, but suddenly you come to AGEM and everything's sweetness and light. You're all working together for the betterment of the industry. I mean, is that just because everybody realizes that that a rising tide raises all boats?
I think to a large extent that is part of it. And you're right. Listen, we are fiercely competitive in the street. So just like the United Nations, sure. You come to the table with the betterment of the industry, AGEM overall. But we advocate for our operator partners as well. So we fiercely are competitors on the street. we come to it with an attitude when we meet and as we conduct business to really have a sensibility of what's better for the industry. So I think everybody plays ball very nicely. And listen, we're a small industry with what we could call frenemies. So you go after it when it's time to compete, and then it's okay to go have a beer and talk about being friends as well.
Sure, and that's what happens after G2E, which is my favorite part. So
that's right.
So you've AGM has always had a great relationship with regulators and even legislators to a large extent. Why is that such an important role for AGM?
Well, let's start with just say it. We play in one of the most regulated businesses out there. Right. We chose to do that to be vendors in the gaming industry. But with that, over the period of time, you get accustomed to the landscape of what we call and know and love this fun business we call gaming. So AGM gets our charter to advocate on behalf of the industry, advocate on behalf of our members. And through that process, we've got to know and have deep relationships with regulators and other influencers in the space. So out of that, just time builds on that relationship. AGM has a variety of committees that help support our member groups. But I would say one of the most active committees is our compliance committee. Right. And again, that's comprised of our members, compliance professionals that come to AGM and form that committee. So they advocate on behalf of their own company, as well as they come together and advocate on behalf of the vendor space. I think that's what makes AGM so strong, is that we have a lot of just consummate professionals that have been doing this for a long time. And I think with that strength in numbers helps us be effective for our members.
Right, absolutely. So, obviously suppliers are very interested in the expansion of gaming around the world, and you guys keep your fingers on the pulse everywhere. I know, you've been active in Mexico trying to figure out what's going on down there, and a lot of the other countries that are considering the legalization of gaming. How do you keep your members informed on those kind of things?
I would say in a few different ways. We do have an AGM Governmental Affairs Committee, along with the Compliance Committee. Those two committees contribute a lot of activity that's going on there. If it's a new market that's opening up, if there's expansion of a market that's being advocated for, we try to be, and I think usually are, very involved in the advocacy when those things come to that. And I will say our members are also very good at bringing opportunities to the table that ends up becoming an agenda item that we openly cover. It's not everybody out for themselves just trying to hit the market first. Again, it's a small space. Sooner or later, in the front end of a process, we're all going to know. So through those variety of channels, we keep a pulse on things and regularly have it on as an agenda item when we meet monthly.
Right. So one of the areas that is always a little touchy is the illegal games that are being offered in states at convenience stores and restaurants and bars and things of that nature. And we've gone through that. Most recently in Virginia. Illinois. Completely cleaned up that side of the market. So how do you approach that kind of thing? Because there's a lot of manufacturers that were always operating in those gray markets, and they're not members of AGM.
They're not, coincidentally. Listen, Missouri, Texas, it just seems like it's always a little bit of whack-a-mole of where that activity is going on. And again, to the charter of AGM, each of our companies have gone through a lot to be in this privileged, licensed, highly regulated business. It's our role to protect the overall space. AGM gaming has a great reputation, and over the years it hasn't always been that way, so it's fighting to keep it that way. And those gray games or illegal games out there, they're not regulated. There's no jurisdiction over them, so who knows what goes on. And there's some strong speculation of we know what goes on. So fighting that to keep the reputation of the overall gaming industry and working with individual states and constituents is important to keep the good reputation of regulated gaming, polished and pristine.
Right. It also sometimes puts you in a uncomfortable position with your regular clients, with the operators. In Illinois, for example, they vigorously oppose the bars and the machines in bars and restaurants and lost that battle. That must be a delicate dance for you guys.
It is. Fortunately, those rubs or those conflicts don't come up that often. But listen, we're all looking for expansion for our ownership groups and those types of things. We try to very pragmatically and sensitively approach those when they come to be. And listen, the cards are going to fall the way they're going to fall, but we are sensitive to the different stakeholders and where there may be conflicts.
Sure. Another area that AGEM has really been up on recently has been the responsible gaming. A few years ago, you appointed Connie Jones as the director of responsible gaming for AGEM. How has she contributed to that discussion, both for you and the industry as a whole?
I'm glad you brought that up, Roger. I mean, certainly responsible gaming is a very, very important topic of conversation, as well as activities that our industry always stays active with. As for Connie, we have welcomed Connie and are very fortunate to have Connie on AGEM as a contributor. Her contribution is always on the monthly agendas. She's a consummate professional with years and years of experience that she brings to the table, and she applies that. She's very, very active of panels and conferences, and not only in the United States but globally. She does a great job of summarizing all that activity, bringing it to the membership for discussion, as well as keeping members up to date on that. But AGEM, it's certainly one of the things that we hold very dearly, of being a participant, an active participant in the responsible gaming initiatives, and support that. Listen, it's important to protect vulnerable players that are out there, and we're glad to be part of it.
Yeah, no question. Well, she's my go-to person whenever I have a question about.
She always has an answer.
You know, she does. She knows where all the bodies are buried too, which is always nice.
Ow.
So you work with a lot of constituencies, the AGA, the European Casino Association, the Gaming Standards Association. There's all the alphabet soup of these organizations, trade show operators, of course, as well. How do you line all that up so that everything goes smoothly with those organizations?
Well, let's start at the foundation of that is Marcus Prater as our executive director. Longtime executive director, has contributed so much to AGEM over the years, but he serves as our point of contact for all of those different agencies and associations. So with that, he's developed long-standing relationships with its key members. Right. So with trade organizations and everyone else, he is committed to working with those groups, keeps AGEM very involved as advocating for our members, as well as being a participant in a variety of different topics. So he spends a lot of time being involved and communicating both into the AGEM as well as externally outwards to the other organizations. And I will say, for the most part, AGEM is very aligned with the other agencies, that our members of AGEM are also oftentimes members of those other organizations. So that helps us stay aligned, and we're advocating for the same things. But Marcus does a great job of being that continuity and that contact for all of that activity. Right,
no question about that. So we all always have known the impact of gaming goes far beyond the physical casinos and the jobs they create. But when you add AGEM in the products and services that operators buy from AGEM members and all of your employees, I mean, you've done a couple of economic studies that really expand the impact of gaming far beyond just the casinos themselves.
Yeah. So periodically, AGEM will sponsor having an economic impact study done. So the last one we did were under different times. In April of 2019, we worked with Applied Analysis and had an economic impact study. So, gaming was revving up pretty good in 2019. So, qualify these numbers, post-pandemic of what we've all gone through. But for the most part, we've recovered. So I'll just rattle off a little bit of what that study said for the economic impact. So overall, the slot companies reported nearly a $56 billion total impact, direct nearly $21 billion impact. The industry employees on the vendor side, 61,700 direct employees, huge employee base.
Sure.
And with a very healthy average wage of over $90,000 across that. So with that, it goes without saying, we're a large contributor to the overall gaming economy from the vendor side of that. And I can speak just on behalf of everything we've gone through in the pandemic in the past 18 months. Things have gotten healthier. We still have more to navigate with the pandemic, but we've hired back all of our employees plus some to continue driving dramatic economic impact, as have other members of AGEM. So, it hasn't been with an even hand across all how we've been impacted by this, but to a large extent, casinos have come back quite well, and I think the vendor base to a large extent have as well.
Yeah, no question. I think it's the untold story of gaming right now, and you guys do a great job of getting that word out there for sure.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Marcus Prater. He has informed you guys he's stepping down next year. I think he wants to go fishing in Idaho most of the time, and I don't blame him for that. What kind of process do you have to replace him?
So listen, I mentioned earlier, Marcus Prater has served AGEM and the industry very well with a very calm, steady hand for years now. So when he steps down, he has agreed to stay on through the beginning of next year, as well as a crossover depending on AGEM needs and where we are. So we thank Marcus for his contribution over the years, and I personally appreciate all his assistance and guidance for me in stepping in as president as well as an officer of AGEM. So with that, we wanted to make sure we were on top of a smooth transition. So we've had a very open process of putting the word out there that we're looking for a replacement for the executive director position, and we're gathering talent and going through an interviewing process. And we expect to be able to finalize that, and we should be on track that at G2E or no later than the end of this year, we'll make an announcement for a replacement of Marcus. So more to come on that, but we're in a good place to find somebody to try to step into those very large Marcus Prater shoes. And
definitely a big shoes to fill there for sure.
Yeah.
So one of the other things that's going to happen next year, you'll have an office in the UNLV Blackfire Center, a beautiful new building that's been built in the Summerlin area of Vegas. Why is that an important milestone for the organization?
Well, hopefully you've been out there to see the UNLV Blackfire
incredible,
Center. It's very, very, very nice. And listen, it's only begun. They're in the early stages of getting all the occupancy as well as expanding into additional buildings. So it's a nice piece of real estate. It's important for AGEM, I think, to be present where gaming is present. And I'll view that as somewhat of a little hub headquarters, with UNLV calling it home. Caesars has an office out there. There are other AGEM members that have offices or are considering offices out there. So it's a nice hub. So we made the decision that it's time for AGEM to grow up and have that presence amongst other industry professionals in the Blackfire Center. So we're working on the final paperwork right now, and by the end of the year, we should be occupying our office space there. We've already transitioned through the pandemic. Everybody's been doing Zoom calls and meetings remotely. The past two monthly AGEM monthly meetings, we've held both Zoom as well as a physical meeting at the UNLV Blackfire Center in one of the conference rooms there. It's good to have the industry come to that center as well and experience. So we're happy to have the opportunity and really embrace it, view it as a growing up, if you will, of AGEM, and it's the right place to be.
Sure, absolutely. So we've got G2E coming up for the first time in a couple of years now. Of course, we did it virtually last year, which was strange, but this year it's back in person. And what's AGEM's role going to be at G2E?
So we are always, certainly our members are the show, right?
Yes.
I would say one thing that is a new development is that in conjunction with AGA and Reed, who own the show,
right?
But the vendors are the show. We've come to agreement with AGA and Reed and a steering committee that AGEM now has a seat at the table. We meet regularly to talk about all things G2E. From protocols to attendance to programs and conferences and everything else, all the way through the, AGEM is a major sponsor for the chairman's reception, along with the AGA Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
So we contribute and participate in many ways, and we'd like to stay very active. We have another steering committee meeting later this week as we're down to kind of the final planning for G2E. I can tell you from speaking with customers, everyone is excited for a face-to-face. Certainly with a little bit of a cloud still out there of what protocols will there be,
right,
and those types of things. The word from last week's AGEM monthly meeting, Reed and AGA were there to give us an update. The online registration has just started for G2E.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Glad to hear that we have casino partners already signing up for that. So we have high anticipation this is going to be just a good old G2E and one of the best we've ever had.
Yeah. Probably won't see a lot of international visits, unfortunately, but
no,
I think you're going to see strong U.S. visitation, I believe.
I think so too. In conversation with the Canadian Gaming Association and those folks, I know as many of our Canadian partners to the north will try to make it, but it's a little trickier with the border situation.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But there's some opportunity there, so we're hoping we'll see some of our Canadian friends as well.
Great. So one of the things you do at each G2E is pass out the Peter Mead and the Jens Holly Awards. These are two very prestigious awards. I was honored to get the second Peter Mead Award, and our Frank Legato went on to get the third. So it's an important award. And why is that important to AGEM to pass out those awards?
Well, first off, very well deserved for you, Roger, as well as our friend Frank. Listen, the AGEM started this, in the untimely loss of our friends Jens and Peter back in 2015. We view this as a very an important award and tradition to carry on. There's nominatings and criteria that are strictly followed. So for the Jens Holly Awards honoring excellence in commercial gaming and professionalism, we'll stay true to that. To that headline, and then for Peter Mead, honoring excellence in gaming, media, and communications. So, announcement to be had at G2E, but we're very excited to keep the tradition alive, if you will, and honor those great men that contributed so much to gaming.
Sure, we're looking forward to seeing that as well. So, what do you hope to bring to AGEM for the remainder of your term here?
So listen, I'll kind of tie it back to we view, and I will say I echo this for the officer group overall. We view the path forward, our future, to be very, very bright, and really taking an opportunity as we change executive directors to reanalyze of what our charter has been and refresh what we do that. So we're actually evaluating new initiatives, new objectives that AGEM will focus on into the future. We have a solid foundation of contributing for our members, and the member participation is very active. So we're reviewing the criteria, and I hold very high expectations that we'll continue pushing on to new levels with new objectives that will be fruitful for the industry as well as our members. And I think with that helps us to continue to keep AGEM fresh by growing membership and having the membership profile continue to evolve as the industry evolves and grows.
Great. Well, Dave, as the official North American publication of AGEM, we're proud to be associated with you guys, and our booth is right next to you at G2E, so I'm sure we'll be seeing each other there. And thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And again, congratulations on becoming president of this great organization.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you for your close participation and partnership with AGEM as well. You're a true friend of AGEM, and we're glad to be with you.
Great. Thanks very much.
All right.
Hope you enjoyed this week's GGB podcast with thanks again to Konami Gaming. Contact your Konami rep to schedule time to tour their 3-dimension slots at next week's G2E. To learn more about AGEM and its crucial role for the gaming industry, visit ggbmagazine.com. And don't miss P3 Magazine for all the progressive products at this year's G2E. For all the news of the gaming industry, particularly of the recovery from the pandemic, delivered to your desktop every Monday morning, sign up for free at ggbnews.com by using the code GGB180. And don't miss a single episode of the podcast. Subscribe on iTunes or Spotify today. So we'll see you next time on the GGB Podcast.